Welcome to Content and Conversations, the podcast for entrepreneurs and business owners that want to prioritize connection and relationship as the primary tool to drive sales. Content and conversations are the two most powerful tools you have to attract the most amazing clients, build solid relationships, and sell more stuff. From sales, marketing, energy, and mindset, we'll discuss everything you need to hit your goals, make more money, and have more fun in your business. Let's go. Hello, and welcome back to Content and Conversations, where we are going to talk about what to do when it feels like nothing is working. And at the time of this recording, it is the end of 2023, and I am having a lot of conversations with really successful businesses, right? Businesses in the multiple six into the seven figures, businesses that have grown year over year. And they're telling me, hey, you know, what's working before isn't working anymore. And I don't even know what to try to fix it. Like, I don't even really know where to start, which is very common, right? Like, we are creatures of habit. And so when we are creatures of habit, it becomes so much easier to, just do the things that we have always done. That's the way our brains work. That's, who we are as humans. That's what we do, right? We follow the path of least resistance in our brain, which is extremely normal. So the first thing I want to tell you is there's nothing wrong with you if you can't break out of this is the only way I know how to do it thought process, because that is your brain's job, right? Your reptilian brain is, it is here to keep you safe, and it's here to keep you in habits, and it believes it's in survival mode. And so it's like, no, stay in this habit loop, stay in this habit loop, stay in this habit loop. So that is typically what happens when we're like, okay, well, I've built these habits that were successful, and now I need to build new successful habits, and that feels challenging. So the reason you're experiencing that has a lot to do with your brain. But let's talk about the sales and marketing side of things, right? What do I do when it feels like nothing is working? And so I'm going to walk you through three things really specifically that we recommend to all of our clients, that I'm working with clients on, whether it's our private clients, our done for you clients, or even some of our, done DIY offers as well. And so the first thing that we talk about is boring messaging, right? Boring messaging. And the reason that messaging is starting to feel boring is we say the same things over and over again. We kind of lose the enthusiasm. We lose the excitement. And we just kind of work on autopilot, right? So a lot of the content calendars or different things that we have seen in the past that were like, and I used to do this, like I had a Facebook group, and it was like Monday was this theme, and Tuesday was this theme, and Wednesday was this theme. And that worked for a very long time. But again, just as your brain has made it habitual, right? The consumer, right? The people reading your content are also kind of glossing over that, right? They've seen it enough. And so they're become desensitized to the messaging that you have been putting out. So we need to revive your messaging. We really need to revive messaging. And so we really need to kind of reevaluate who is your ideal client, right? Where are they starting from? Where do they want to go? What is the symptoms of the problem that they're having? Emotionally, what's going on? What's the conversation that they're having in their head? This is something you should be revisiting as an organization annually, at least, right? Depending on the industry you're in, maybe you want to do it more frequently, but every single year you should be sitting down and having a conversation about how are we updating our messaging to make sure that our messaging is changing with what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening in the world, right? What's happening in our industry. There's so many things. I feel like time is moving so fast, and there's so many changes happening so quickly, but we just want to keep using the same messaging, right? For me, I've been talking about sales and marketing in some way, shape, or form on the internet since 2019, but I've had to change the way that I talk about it, right? Because what is going on in the market is very different. I say this often. When I was teaching brand new entrepreneurs back in 2019 and 2020 is extremely different than what we're talking about now in 2023. Really the importance of content marketing and the importance of sales messaging and the importance of audience building and selling more frequently, right? Like, these are all different things. So sales and marketing is still sales and marketing, but the trends are changing, and the industry is changing, what's working is changing, and technology is changing. And I'm sure you're having those exact same things happen in your industry with your ideal client. So really making sure you're taking time to reevaluate your sales messaging at least annually. So we do this through we call it the sales experience. It's our proprietary framework that we walk all of our clients through that really help them break apart all the different parts of their offers and all the different parts of their values so that their messaging is on point for, and current. But that is probably the number one reason that what was working before isn't working anymore, is because you're still using messaging that was maybe working, 12 to 24 months ago, and it just needs a refresh. So the good news is, if you have made it work once, you can make it work again. So I do want to give you some hope in there, right? That you're like, hey, you know how to do this. You're not a newbie. You're not, a stranger to making it work. It's just we have to evolve with the evolution that's happening in our industries. So then the second thing, and I did an entire podcast on this, but also is reach and frequency, right? It is noisier than ever on the internet, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter if you're a brick and mortar business. It doesn't matter if you're an online business, right? Like it is just noisier than ever before. And so we have to have the reach and frequency that allows you to cut through that noise. So it does tie into your messaging, right? Absolutely, having really good messaging, but then also making sure that you are actually putting yourself out there often enough that people are seeing it, right? It is saying the same thing over and over and over again in different ways to create that reach and frequency. And like I said, I have an entire podcast on this, but this is one that I think a lot of people are resistant to because they first of all, either content creation isn't your favorite thing to do. So you're like, I don't want to create more content. I create the bare minimum content that I have to create, right? I certainly don't want to be creating more. And I understand, but I'm going to challenge you with, if you want to make sure that you stay top of mind, if you want to make sure that you are, staying relevant and you want to make sure your ideal client is seeing you, your only option is more, right? Better and more, or ads, right? And ads are absolutely positively an option. I'm not anti-ads by any stretch of the imagination. I personally haven't had an incredible experience with advertising, but that doesn't mean that I don't know people who have, and I don't believe in it. I sold advertising for many years. So, but I just want to tell you that that reach and frequency game, and the people don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear that they have to do more, because many people who are still handling your own marketing don't even like what you're doing, right? Like you're like, I don't even like the bare minimum. And now you're telling me that I have to do more, Ryan. And the truth of the matter is I am. And again, I would have told you 2 years ago, I would have said something so differently, right? I would have said something so differently. So this, I had thought about this. I had tested this. I have experienced this personally. So when I tell you that you need to be putting out more content, it's not just flippantly saying, go post more content. It is saying, hey, as the speed of the news feed, whether it is on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or wherever you spend time, as more people are creating content, you're going to have to put out more content to stand out over and above that content, right? If people are being contacted by 20 different people, right, your contact is going to have to actually cut through that noise in a meaningful way. So for a lot of people, it's simply, we need to change our messaging, but we also just need to turn the volume up because it just needs to be louder, right? It's not necessarily like, think of it again with a radio, turning the volume up. You don't really need to say anything different. You just need to turn the volume up a little bit more so that people can hear it. And then the third thing is not enough sales activity, right? And so there's a lot of marketing activity. And so far this podcast, I've primarily dominated talking about marketing activity, right? Posting content to social media, email marketing, podcast, YouTube, all those different ways that we're marketing, blogging, whatever works best for you. But that is great, right? Marketing is the view. And I guess I have a whole podcast on this too, right? Where marketing is, we're standing up with our megaphone trying to, cast a really wide net. And then sales is kind of that one-to-one sprint of getting people, over that finish line. So a lot of people are doing a lot of top of funnel, a lot of, again, standing here with my megaphone talking about what I do. But we're not actually then walking those people down a sales path, right? We're not walking them down an actual conversion path. We're just talking at, and not saying, okay, cool, how do we move these people further down the funnel? How do we actually build and nurture that relationship? How do we get them to know, like, and trust us in a more meaningful way than to just read our content, right? Because every single one of us has that content creator that we follow and that we read all their shit, and we've never bought anything from them. Right? We've never bought anything from them because there's not a clear path to go further down the funnel, right? You're like, oh, this person is entertaining, or this person is helpful, or this person is interesting, but we never actually reach out and say, hey, how do I work with you? Right? And that's typically because there is not a process in place that's actually designed to move people down from just reader of content or consumer of content to actually buyer of stuff. So what is sales activity, right? For us, it is conversations. That is our primary sales activity. Every single new friend request that we get, we start a conversation. Every single new friend request that is accepted. And yes, we intentionally send out friend requests on Facebook. You can be doing this on LinkedIn, Instagram, all the platforms, doesn't matter, right? I choose Facebook. It's my favorite platform. You can choose a different platform. I don't think it matters, right? But the point is that every single new person who comes into our world actually gets a message from us, right? That actually starts a conversation to build a one-to-one relationship. And to me, that is sales activity. Marketing activity, one-to-many. Sales activity, one-to-one. Can you do selling in a one-to-many platform? Yes, of course, right? But we're not going to pull that apart today. But are you actually talking to people? Are you actually building relationships? Or are you just becoming somebody whose content that they read? or consume in some capacity. So for me, it's really starting those conversations, making people feel seen, heard, and understood, making offers. Right. I know that this sounds so silly, but the number of people whose news feeds that I scroll through, and there's really great content and their messaging is actually really good, but there's no effing offers. Like there's no, hey, this is how you work with me. There's zero of that. And I don't know if this is fueled by like the fear of, I don't want to be too salesy. I don't know if this is, I don't know how to make offers. I don't know if this is, I don't know where that's coming from for so many people, but I do want to tell you that like you have to make offers. You have to make offers to help people, right? Like you have to tell people, this is how to buy my stuff. This is how you do business with us. This is how we support our clients. And you have to do that often as well. I always think back to the old school Gary Vee, right? Jab, 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 right hook. Give, ask, give, ask, give, ask. That's what, Gary Vee has always taught. I think nowadays he does less asking. And I think that could be dangerous too, right? When you are Gary Vaynerchuk and you have the following that he has and you have the brand that he has and the brand recognition that he has, right? You might not need to ask, right? But I don't know about you. I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't have that level of influence and authority yet. So people aren't just like, hey, whatever I can do to work with Ryan Dowdy, right? Like that's not happening for me yet in my industry. It's happening for you. Game on. That's amazing. But it's not. So I have to actually tell people how to work with me, right? I have to actually tell our clients or tell our audience, this is how you do business with the Connection Agency. These are our offers that we have. And like I said, the number of people who's, news feeds and stuff that I scroll through, and there's just no mention of their offers. There's fantastic content, right? They're following the blueprint. They're creating relationships. Their messaging is on point, but they're never saying, hey, this is how you do business with me. And like I said, I think there's a lot of reasons that we don't do that as humans. I think some of it is, the fear of rejection. I think some of it is, not knowing exactly what to say. Some of it is the fear of, I don't want to be too salesy or pushy. I think all of those, but, ultimately, if we want to sell more stuff, we have to have sales activity, right? We have to actually say, sell the thing, actually sell the thing. So there are three things, like I said, that if nothing is working, that I want you to look at. Okay. And actually, I'm going to add in a fourth for funsies, because this is just the way my brain works, is, are you growing your audience every day? Right? Are you growing your audience every day? Because I would argue that is probably a fourth reason why it's not working anymore, because you're talking to the same people over and over and over and over again, right? We're onboarding a new client in the agency. He's brilliant. He's great at what he does. He's built this incredible community, but there's been very little effort in bringing new people into his world over the past couple of years as he's built his business. So he has gotten to the point where he has a really great engaged audience. He has really great sales messaging. He has a really great offer. He has the social proof. He's tested all the things, but there's nobody new seeing his stuff. And so we need to also make sure that when we are doing all the things, right, when we polish our messaging, right, when we say more, we up our reach and frequency, when we have more sales activity, that we are also adding more people to our ecosystem every single day, right? New people, different people, so that they can continue to see our stuff, right? So that we can continue to make sure that we build a healthy sales pipeline. So I would say that that's probably a fourth thing for a lot of people. If what you were doing before isn't working, it's because, like, are you actually taking the time to build your audience? And so how do you build your audience? Again, for us, it's really simple. We go out onto social media. We use a piece of software called Connect Chat, right, that allows us to go out onto social media, pull people into our software, go through, organize those contacts of, like, who's a great fit for our services, who's a great collaboration partner, who's just a cool human I would love to know. And then we go through and we friend request those people, or we send connection requests on LinkedIn, or we follow them on Instagram, or whatever that is, right? And so then we're just constantly making sure that there are those new people coming into our world, and we're building those new relationships. So we're nurturing the old relationships, we're growing the audience, and we're building new relationships every single day. And again, we do this in a very systemic way. It doesn't take us a ton of time. We've got it down pat, so if you're like, holy shit, Ryan, that feels really overwhelming, that's actually where the software comes into play. So those are the four things, right? If what you were doing before is no longer working, I want you to take a look at these four things. Your messaging, right? Once a year, update your messaging, go through whatever your process is. We have a process, but if you want our help, but if you have a process to really think about, like, is our messaging up to date with what is happening in our industry, what is happening in the world, what is happening with our ideal client, right? And then, of course, the reach and frequency. How do we turn up the volume so that we are getting more eyeballs, right? The more people see our stuff, the more frequently they see it, the more engaged they become, the more interested they become, the more likely they are to buy, right? And then the sales activity, right?
right? What are we actually doing to get people to buy our stuff, whether it's inviting them into conversations, whether it's inviting them to sales calls, inviting them to a webinar launch workshop, whether it's just actively selling their stuff on social, whether it's in stories and the news feeds and the emails, right? But like, are we asking for the business often enough to get where we want to go? And then finally, like I said, this is kind of your bonus one, is making sure that you are growing your audience every single day. So there are constantly fresh eyes and opportunities in your audience, because I think that is really, really important, and definitely something that a lot of people forget to take the time to do, because it can feel really overwhelming. It can feel really time consuming. It can feel really daunting. And I know that. That's why we partnered with our software partner. That's why that's, one of the first things we do for our clients is really help them start building a more targeted, intentional ecosystem. So I hope that is helpful for you. We are so grateful for you. Thank you for listening. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to Content and Conversations. If this was helpful for you, I would love if you would follow along, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. And we'll see you next week.